Welcome to This Explainer. Look, if you follow the tech space, you absolutely know the name Elias Kane, and you've definitely seen the massive valuations floating around. But today we're doing something a little different. We're looking at the man behind those wild headlines. We're talking about a boy from the completely forgotten industrial town of Milford who literally built a tech empire out of nothing. So let's get into exactly how he pulled it off.
I mean, really think about it. How does a kid from a decaying factory town build a $4 billion tech empire? It's a question that honestly sounds like a Hollywood movie script, right? But it is deeply and sometimes painfully real. Today, we're going to explore the actual mechanics behind this legendary rags-to-riches ascent. And more importantly, we're going to look at the profound human cost it took to make it happen. Just to wrap our heads around the sheer magnitude of his climb, we've got to look at the extremes. On one side, you have Elias's starting point, a mildewed one-room apartment, thrift store clothes, and later on, literal dumpster diving just to find a meal. Then, look at the other side, his eventual reality, a billionaire with a sprawling penthouse, glossy Forbes profiles, and massive cultural influence. To understand how anyone crosses an impossible chasm like that, we really have to look at what fueled the fire in the first place.
Okay, part one, the embers of Milford.
Picture Milford back in 1995. It was a town where the river literally ran black with factory waste, and poverty was just this daily gnawing fear for everyone. Now, amidst all of that, and dealing with a father who was lost to alcoholism, Elias's mother, Clara, was the absolute heart of the home. Her fierce, quiet love completely insulated Elias from the grim reality outside their door. She worked tirelessly in a dimly lit textile mill, yet she'd still sing old folk songs by candlelight. She told Elias he had fire inside him, and she begged him never let the world put it out. And he didn't. His ascent wasn't overnight magic. It was a result of relentless, compounding hard work. By age 13, he was already doing odd jobs, stashing pennies in a coffee can under his mattress. Fun fact, his dad actually found that can and smashed it in a drunken rage. But Elias, he just picked up the coins and kept saving. That sheer grit compounded over 2 decades, eventually snowballing into Series A funding by age 24, massive revenue by 26, and a mind-blowing $4 billion valuation by the time he was 31. But the ultimate catalyst for this explosive growth didn't happen in some swanky boardroom. It happened in a sterile county hospital. During Elias's sophomore year of college, Clara passed away from pneumonia. Her lungs were just terribly scarred from years of inhaling mill dust. Right before she died, she gripped his hand and made him promise to build something better. Standing at her grave in the freezing rain, Elias made a vow of steel right then and there to never, ever be helpless again. Which brings us to part 2, forging a digital bridge. You see, grief didn't destroy Elias, it completely fueled him. Back at university, he started coding ForgeLink. Now, this wasn't just some flashy tech innovation meant for the Silicon Valley elite. It was a highly practical lifeline. It used simple AI matching to connect small manufacturers directly with affordable suppliers. It optimized supply chains so efficiently that it cut client overhead costs by a massive 30%. He was literally building a digital bridge to help everyday, blue-collar workers keep their struggling businesses alive. But as you can imagine, the path was anything but easy. He pitched ForgeLink at a campus startup competition and was totally mocked by the judges. They laughed at his thrift store clothes and brushed off the market as saturated. That humiliation burned for sure, but it pushed him to make a really radical choice. Elias dropped out, just 6 credits short of graduation. With absolutely no safety net, a grand total of $800 in savings, and 1 beat-up secondhand laptop, he packed up and moved to the city to make ForgeLink happen. And the city was brutal. Elias faced constant, endless rejection from investors. He was sleeping in a roach-infested studio, and at his lowest point, even resorted to dumpster diving behind delis when he was facing eviction. But then, the turning point. A single seed investment of $50,000 from a mid-level venture capitalist named Dr. Lena Voss. That single number completely changed the trajectory of his life. What's amazing is that Lena didn't just see a good app, she saw the man behind it. She invested her own money, explicitly going against the advice of her firm. Why? Because she recognized that Elias's raw passion and his painful working-class origins weren't liabilities at all. They were actually his greatest business assets. As she put it, she knew his scars made good armor. Moving into part 3, the billion-dollar ascent. Armed with Lena's seed money,
ForgeLink gained this unstoppable momentum that quite literally reshaped global supply chains. By the time Elias hit 26, the AI had evolved significantly. It could suddenly predict global supply chain disruptions with uncanny accuracy. So during a massive port strike, while competitors were sinking fast, ForgeLink clients thrived. Revenue absolutely exploded. The media started calling him the Milford Miracle. The company expanded, went public, and his net worth soared into the 9 figures, finally culminating in a strategic acquisition by a tech giant that valued ForgeLink at over $4 billion, and he was just 31 years old. However, immense wealth brings its own unique shadows, right? Paparazzi started digging into his painful past, old friends grew incredibly jealous, and his family dynamics began to fracture under the sheer weight of all that money. He found himself standing in this sleek, sprawling penthouse, feeling totally isolated. One day, when his niece, Sophie, innocently asked if they were rich now, Elias had to remind her of the grounded truth he learned from his mom. Money is just a tool. What actually matters is who you become. All right, let's jump to part 4, weathering the storm. Because success is rarely a straight line upwards. At age 33, Elias faced a devastating crisis. We're talking about a massive 60% stock plummet. This was initially triggered by a brutal global economic downturn, but it was made infinitely worse by an old money rival who launched fabricated lawsuits and a vicious corporate smear campaign. Investors were panicking left and right. The board started whispering about replacing the emotional founder and basically demanded his resignation. Everything he had built to honor his mother's memory was suddenly teetering on the brink of total collapse. But instead of folding and walking away, Elias used that old fire to execute one of the most legendary comeback strategies in modern tech. He didn't hide behind a desk in a boardroom. No, he personally visited client factories, rolling up his sleeves right there in the warehouses. Just like his father used to do, he brilliantly pivoted the company towards sustainable AI to help small businesses actually survive the crash. And he released these incredibly viral, unscripted transparency videos. Just a billionaire in jeans, back in the grit, proving to the world that he absolutely hadn't forgotten the working class. And you know what? That authentic return to his roots saved the entire company. The stock rebounded incredibly. By the time Elias was 35, his personal net worth was right back up to over $3 billion. The crisis definitely tested him, but it ultimately proved that his deep connection to everyday people was the strongest foundation a company could possibly have. Finally, part 5, beyond the balance sheet. Once the dust from the crash settled, Elias completely redefined what his wealth actually meant. He stepped back as CEO. A terrifying stint in the NICU with his premature son really woke him up to how utterly powerless money can be in the face of life and death. So he aggressively shifted his focus to philanthropy. He funded a massive Milford community center with free coding classes. He built state-of-the-art hospitals named after Clara. He endowed scholarships for kids specifically from industrial towns. He wanted to make absolutely sure that no child ever had to teach themselves to code by flashlight alone ever again. In his best-selling autobiography, Elias was brutally honest. He openly shared the unvarnished truth of his entire journey. He didn't sugarcoat it. He acknowledged the deep emotional sacrifices and the profound isolation required to achieve such monumental heights. He taught young entrepreneurs coming from broken homes that the cost of success is incredibly high. As he wrote, "It demands your soul first, but if you remember where you came from, it gives back pieces of light." Elias Kane took his absolute deepest struggles and transformed them into the foundation of a multi-billion-dollar empire. And he didn't do it just to get rich. He did it to reshape his community and heal his own fractured heart. We all carry our own history, guys. And at the end of the day, money is simply a tool. So the question I want to leave you with is this: what will you build with your scars? Thanks so much for exploring this story with me today in this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.